Double feature. Pumpkinhead and Pumpkinhead 2. Excellent.
Keep away from Pumpkinhead, unless you're tired of living. His enemies are mostly dead. He's mean and unforgiving. Laugh at him and you're undone, but in some dreadful fashion. Vengeance he considers fun, and plans it with a passion. Time will not erase or blot a plot that he has brewing. It's when you think that he's forgot, he'll conjure your undoing. Bolted doors and windows barred, guard dogs prowling in your yard. Won't protect you in your bed, nothing will, from Pumpkinhead.
Now playing. We'll just set this one over here. Now, the credits say that Pumpkinhead was inspired by a poem, namely the poem that you heard at the beginning there. That was the entire poem, by the way. That was it. A poem by Ed Justin. Now, I scoured the internet looking for information about this poem. Nobody seems to know anything about it. All they know is it's by this guy named Ed Justin. There is no information about Ed Justin out there either. He didn't do anything else, as far as anyone knows. At least not that he's released to the public. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows what the origins of this poem is, other than this Ed Justin guy wrote it. So it's very mysterious. Kind of spooky, actually. So anyway, Pumpkinhead was inspired by that poem. Now, the poem itself is fairly straightforward. I mean, we can kind of put our own mental images to it based on what we've seen in the movie, but the poem on its own is actually very vague about what exactly Pumpkinhead is. So, who knows? Anyway, Pumpkinhead, the movie. I had not seen this since it was basically new and newly released on VHS. And I had read about it in some of the horror magazines at the time. And, I heard that, one of the big deals about it was this huge practical effects creature that had been created, big, very maneuverable monster suit with this big, tall guy in it. So I was really curious to see that in action, obviously. Plus, it stars Lance Henriksen, who is an actor that I have absolutely adored his work ever since first seeing him, and being consciously aware of him in Aliens. I didn't realize until quite some time later, and when I resaw it, I had seen him before in other things, most notably as one of the police officers in the original Terminator. So basically Lance Henriksen plays Ed Harley, who is a man living in this sort of small town out in the middle of nowhere. Everybody knows everybody. He runs the general store there, and he has a young son who's maybe like, 5 or maybe like 6 or 7 years old. Really young anyway, and just absolutely cute as a button. And they have just such a wonderful, wonderful relationship, father-son. I mean, it's obvious that they just absolutely love each other and, look out for each other as much as they can. So what happens is there's this group of teenagers that come into town, city folk, causing trouble and whatnot, and basically they're coming in to go to this cabin that one of their parents owns or something like that. Anyway, they're going out to this cabin to do some dirt biking, and they stop by Ed's store. It's kind of on the way, just to stock up on some supplies and stuff like that. And a couple of the teenagers decide that they don't want to wait until they get to the cabin. They're going to do some dirt biking right now. So Ed has to has to leave the store for a little bit and run an errand. He has to deliver some stuff to one of the local farmers who just can't wait for these things that he needs. So he goes off to the store and he leaves his son. He says, "Yeah, just look after the store. Don't go outside, and I'll be back in 20 minutes or so." So he goes off to run his errand, and the little boy also has a dog. And the dog gets, as dogs do, gets distracted by something and bolts out the door and goes outside. So the little boy goes out after him. And, what ends up happening is one of the teenagers dirt biking actually runs over the little boy. Doesn't see him, goes sailing over a hill, and runs him over. And basically kills him. Now, he doesn't kill him instantly. I mean, he's like injured and like knocked down and stuff like that. So the other kids are like, trying to help and such, and there's nobody around. There's just nobody there. There was like a group of sort of local hillbillies that were at the store earlier, but they're long gone. Ed's long gone, still off on his errand. So, so they're freaking out. Now, the one who ran the kid over, wonderful character actor, by the way, by the name of John D'Aquino. D'Aquino. Sorry, I'm butchering his last name. Anyway, you totally recognize him if you saw him. He's been in tons and tons of stuff over the years. Actually, his name, the credit he was given in the movie is slightly different from what his actual name is, just to make it more confusing. Anyway, John D'Aquino, D'Aquino. God, I'm just terrible with names sometimes. Sorry, John, if you're watching. Love your work, man. You're awesome. Anyway, he's basically just freshly out of jail and he's on probation, and he's freaking out because now he's been in an accident and injured somebody, a little kid no less, and he's like, and he flees the scene, and several of his friends take up after him, and then one of them stays with the kid to see if he's okay. So he takes off, and one of his buddies catches up and says, "What are you doing? You can't just leave the scene." It's like, "No, dude, I'm on probation. I ran over the kid and I was drinking. Like, they're going to string me up and burn me alive if they, I'm going to go back to jail forever." And he's just freaking out. Like, his freedom is at stake, and he knows he did wrong, but he can't reconcile, his freedom with doing the right thing, essentially. So to make a long story short, Ed comes back and sees what's happened, and basically picks up his kid, and the one teenager who stayed is like trying to explain it's like there was an accident. We didn't mean for any of this to happen, and it's like, is there anything we can do to help? And he's furious. I mean, he is just outraged by what happened. And just overcome with worry for his boy. So he takes him home, doesn't take him to the hospital because, them backwoods country folk don't trust them hospitals. So there's a lot of sort of fan theories as to why he didn't take him to a hospital. And the popular theory is simply that, because they don't trust city folk and like to do their own thing. They're kind of their own little community there and just like to do their own thing and take care of their own. And that's basically it. So he takes him home and he puts him in bed and puts the blanket on him and stuff. And the little boy passes away. He dies, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. Now, I should mention at this point, there's a moment in the movie where Ed first picks up little Billy, the little kid, and picks him up. And as he's picking him up, Billy just moves his arm very slightly, and just puts his arm around him. Now, on IMDb, this is listed under goofs. I do not think this is a goof. I did not, for 1 second, think that was a mistake. Did I notice that the little boy moved his arm? Yes. And you know what I saw it as? The little boy knew he was dying and just wanted to hold his father one last time. I don't think that's a goof. That's a heartbreaking, tragic, subtle moment. And that's actually one of the things that I really like about this movie just generally, is this really is a horror movie with a hell of a lot of heart to it. Yes, we have the rampaging monster going around killing everybody, which we'll get to in a minute. But it also has a lot of genuine, heartfelt emotion. I mean, you got Lance Henriksen playing the grieving father, and boy, does he ever put a lot of emotional chutzpah into it. It's just fantastic. So, he's absolutely overcome with grief because his son died in such a pointless and tragic way, and those responsible fled the scene. They just left. Like, great. Like, just fuck the life of my kid, you know? So, he remembers something that he saw when he was a kid. Now, this is actually this was actually the first scene of the movie, but I kind of saved it to this point for a reason. So he remembers something that he saw when he was a kid, which was basically he heard the tale of Pumpkinhead, because when he was a kid, there was this man who came pounding on the door of his parents' house, and they wouldn't let him in. And he's like, "Why won't you let him in?" He was like begging for help, pleading, and they said, "No, we can't let him in because Pumpkinhead's after him." You know, Pumpkinhead is the demon of revenge. Like, he comes back to wreak vengeance on whoever is targeted by whoever summons him. So if we get in his way, Pumpkinhead will come after us too. So you can't interfere when Pumpkinhead is on a mission of vengeance, or you will become a target as well. You do not get in the way. Period. So Ed remembers this incident and thinks, maybe this is what I need to do. So he goes and talks to the hillbillies and says, "I know you know where the old witch is that knows how to summon Pumpkinhead." And they don't want to have anything to do with it, because if they get involved, then they don't want to risk any of their own getting hurt or killed. But one of the young boys overhears and offers to help Ed find the witch. So, long story short, he finds the witch. She gives him instructions on what to do to summon Pumpkinhead and have Pumpkinhead exact vengeance on those responsible for his boy's death. Now, the thing is, there's really only one of the teenagers that's responsible. And this is one of the layers of it that makes it so tragic. It's just the one, Joel is the character's name, the one who was on probation, the one who actually ran over the kid and was the one who was actually being reckless and careless and, you know, did the bad thing. So he brings the body of his boy to the witch, and she, you know, does some stuff to the body and basically gives Ed instructions. Says, "Yeah, go to this cemetery, and there you'll find what you seek." And he's like, "Well, what am I looking for?" And she says, "You'll know it when you find it." So he goes to the cemetery and he finds this huge mound with pumpkins all around it, and it's basically a little pumpkin patch in the middle of the cemetery on this raised mound, like this huge mound of earth. So he climbs up onto the mound of earth and digs it up, and there's a corpse inside. So he brings the corpse back to the witch. She does her thing, and it basically grows into Pumpkinhead, the vengeance demon, and it goes off to exact vengeance on those that wronged him. Now, here's the thing: every time Pumpkinhead kills somebody, Ed feels something. He feels like he feels the death of the person, and it affects him. It causes him pain. And as he's, you know, at first, I mean, he's stricken with grief. He's not thinking clearly. And he realizes after the first few deaths that maybe this was a mistake. You know, I'm punishing people who really had nothing to do with it. I mean, they said at the time it was an accident. You know, I need to stop this. This is wrong. So he tries to stop Pumpkinhead, but realizes that he can't. I mean, it's unstoppable. Once it's on the mission of vengeance, it cannot be stopped. It needs to complete what it was summoned for, and then it will go away. So, but he doesn't want any more deaths on his conscience, so he has to figure out a way to stop it. And that's where we get into some interesting sort of Corsican twins stuff, where things that affect Pumpkinhead affect him. Maybe it works the other way too. So, yeah, pretty interesting stuff. But overall, man, I gotta say, like, I should mention, by the way, this is the directorial debut of Stan Winston. Yes, Stan Winston, the legendary creature creator, creature designer of countless movies over the years. So this was his directorial debut, but interestingly enough, he didn't actually design the creature. He actually left it up to his team to do the design work on the creature because he wanted to focus on directing. And boy, what an amazing sum of the parts we have here, because we have a wonderful story, just a good old-fashioned revenge story, essentially, but with so much genuine, heartfelt emotion and heartbreak and powerful drama to it. I mean, this is really, really good. Like, I honestly, like, I mean, I had seen it before, but I remembered very little about it. And boy, did I ever not remember properly. This is so damn good. Like, this is one that I'm going to revisit again and again, because I was just so blown away by it. And I can now definitely understand why it's such a beloved cult classic. This here, of course, is the Scream Factory edition. I'll just quickly show you. So we got one of the original theatrical posters here, and then the new artwork there. Loads and loads of extras. Just a beautiful, beautiful edition. Transfer looked really good on it, too. So, next we have the sequel. This one got a limited theatrical release, and then kind of found most of its cult status on home video. Next up, we have Pumpkinhead 2, Blood Wings, which did not get a theatrical release. It basically went straight to home video. So after seeing just what a freaking modern masterpiece of horror and creature effects work the first one was, I was thinking, wow, I mean, the second one's got to be good. And I saw that Andrew Robinson is in this, who you'll know from, well, if you're a horror fan, you'll know him from the original Hellraiser. If you're a Star Trek fan, you'll know him as, what's his face? The guy, the Cardassian guy who was always talking to Dr. Bajor. Wow, shows I haven't watched much Deep Space Nine. Anyway, that Cardassian guy in Deep Space Nine, you know who I mean. Sorry, I'm more of an original series and Next Generation guy. I'm terribly sorry. I do love Quark and Odo, though. Those are great characters. Anyway, Pumpkinhead 2, Blood Wings. Well, the creature effects are really good. I was actually quite impressed by the creature effects in this. They seem to have made the suit seemed to be pretty maneuverable to begin with. Like, I was really struck in the first one by just how quickly it could move around. I mean, it's a guy in a suit, but it is a guy in a very elaborate, just fantastic design suit. But also very maneuverable. It's not like you get a lot of monsters, like guy in suit monsters, and they tend to be kind of bulky and you can't really move around much. Not so with Pumpkin. I don't know if they made it out of like some lightweight material or something, but this guy was really able to move in it. And in the second one, even more so. Like they really refined that and made it a much, a very maneuverable, fast-moving kind of creature. And all practical effects, man. Like, it's all practical effects, all done the old-fashioned way. And this really shows just how good and how convincing a creature you can have in the hands of people who actually know what they're doing with the art and craft of practical effects. I mean, this is a prime example of just how good practical effects creatures can be. So, in terms of the story, wow. Yeah. Well, Andrew Robinson's in it. He can elevate any piece of crap into at least a nice shiny turd. Yeah, I knew we were in trouble when the opening scene. Okay, the opening scene. Basically, the story here follows the back in the 50s sometime. There was this young boy who was deformed and kind of mentally challenged. And he lived out in the forest by this old sort of mine with his mother. And so one day he's out just playing by the mine. or the well, or I don't even remember what it was. Who cares? Anyway, some old rickety wooden thing with like ropes and chains and bottomless pits and shit. So he's playing just by himself, doing his own thing, and then this car full of greasers comes up, like I don't know, about half a dozen of them, and like just immediately starts giving him hell and like tormenting him and teasing him and pushing him around, and finally they decide they're gonna kill him, so they kill him. Wow, let's just have no character development there at all. Let's just have these guys be mega douches right from the moment go. We're just going to show up and murder you. Now, contrast that with the first one, okay? Where it was an accident. It was an honest mistake. There was multiple layers of character development and moral issues going on there. This one, we have a car full of assholes who just show up and murder the deformed, retarded kid. Yeah, I used the R word, but I mean that's kind of the era that this is set in. So, it's just that's the attitude of it. It's just like, let's go kill the simple kid. And it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth right from the opening freaking scene. So fast forward to like, I don't know, what is it, 30 years later. The mother is living out in the middle of nowhere, has been just grief-stricken for years, and her son is buried out in the the yard there. There's kind of a shrine around him, and well, another group of douchey kids shows up. One of which is the sheriff's daughter. The sheriff is Andrew Robbins. He's the new sheriff in town. His daughter is kind of, had a history of getting into the wrong crowd. And, she immediately gets into the wrong crowd here, too. And, yeah, so sheriff's daughter and her new douchey McDoucherson douche friends douche their way on over to the grieving old woman's house, and accidentally set the freaking place on fire, and find a resurrection spell for Pumpkinhead, and decide to resurrect the kid, and they basically unleash Pumpkinhead on themselves, because they're idiots. And then, you think I'm being facetious, but that actually sums it up pretty well. They literally unleash Pumpkinhead on themselves because they're idiots. So anyway, Pumpkinhead goes on a rampage, kills a bunch of them, almost kills the sheriff's daughter, kills the older the douches from the first scene. They're all grown up and still living in town, so it finds all of them and kills them. Who frickin' cares? Like, honestly. After the freaking masterpiece that is the original, what a come down. Holy crap. The only good part about it that I remember was, just Andrew Robinson trying to figure out what's going on. Like, why is Pumpkinhead after these guys and this and that, and what's going on with how the old lady tie into it. And so the old lady actually doesn't get killed. She gets hospitalized from the fire. And much like how Ed Harley in the first one was feeling the deaths of Pumpkinhead's victims, she's feeling the deaths of Pumpkinhead's victims, in this case because it's her son. Now here's the thing. At the end of the original Pumpkinhead, it was pretty clear who the next Pumpkinhead was going to be. And it was also pretty clear that it was just kind of a vengeance demon. But there was a definite process there for summoning it, and where you would get it, like get the materials you need to summon it. And the second one seems to go against that. It's just they basically resurrect the kid, and the kid turns into Pumpkinhead, which is like, okay, that's completely different. One other just sort of nice little bit is when Andrew Robinson, the sheriff, figures out what's going on and that it's Pumpkinhead, he actually recites part of the Pumpkinhead rhyme. Not the whole thing like I did at the beginning of this video, but just some of it. And so that was a nice little thing. And when he did that, that was what inspired me to track down the poem so I could put it into the video here for you. Yeah, so anyway, I just thought, I gotta find the rest of that poem, because I gotta have the poem in there. Yeah, so I mean, Pumpkinhead 2, what a freaking mess. Like, compared to the first one. Yeah, there's a third and fourth one, too, by the way. I do not have them. I will probably check them out at some point if I find them in a bargain bin somewhere. I'm not expecting much from them, to be honest. So, the limited theatrical release found its audience on home video, straight to home video. 3 and 4 were TV movies that later went to home video. This at least has some, pretty violent deaths at the hands of Pumpkinhead and the more maneuverable suit. I mean, really, you just watch this for the creature effects and the death scenes. That's really the only redeeming quality, is just to see the effects and, if you're a bit of a gorehound. This one you can watch for all of that and a whole lot more, because it's got so much more depth to it and it's just a beautiful fucking movie. So, yeah, Pumpkinhead. Awesome. We need a chocolate bar. Let's have a chocolate bar. Let's, you know what? I don't know. Too many chocolate bars, I can't decide. Yeah, sure, why not? Mr. Big, because Pumpkinhead's a big freaking creature. And all practical. And no wires either, as far as I can tell. It's just a guy in a suit. In fact, so one thing that's cool about this Pumpkinhead 2 set is it has some on-set footage, like actual on-set footage from the time. And you get to see the suit in action and see just how maneuverable it actually was, just in a real-world setting. Yeah, awesome stuff. So anyway, that's it for Pumpkinhead. Awesome. Check out the first one. Check out the second one if you really want to. I am disappointed. Yeah. Anyway. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, especially my 2 highest level sponsors, Kyle Pellegrini and Get Your Gorgeous On, the always awesome EMAG maintained by Michelle O'Doul and Simon Hedger. And thanks to you for watching and being there. So I'll see you next time. Until then, sayonara.